So where do I even begin with this particular console? The craziest thing is that the Nintendo DS Lite was probably not only the most impactful gaming console I've ever had, but it was the most impactful device, electronic device I've ever had either. I was given this thing for my birthday like so many years ago. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old or 9 years old, something like that. And the amount of impact this particular console gave to me back then was absolutely crazy. And it's funny because if you even look back at like my first couple videos on this channel from 2016 or 2017 or something, you would see that I was still talking about this console back then. That's how impactful this console was to me. And without a doubt, it is probably the most important device I've ever gotten or that I was ever gifted, that I ever had, in my personal opinion, personally for me. And I think a lot of people would say the same thing about their favorite gaming console. I didn't really grow up with like the NES or SNES or any of those things, not even like the Nintendo 64, kind of a little bit of the PlayStation 1, but I watch a lot of videos of like some retro, perspectives or whatever they're called, about people's favorite games and development of games and development of consoles. And a lot of people swear that the console that they grew up with at the time, again, was the most impactful device they've really ever had. And more so than even iPhones or Androids or tablets or whatever, it was probably the Nintendo DS Lite that really started my love, I would say, for just electronics and just for different devices and the modding of devices and just the customization of it. And it really came down to this Nintendo DS Lite that I was given, I think in like 2007 or 2006 or 2008, something like that. Now, the Nintendo DS Lite was the successor of the original Nintendo DS. Now, I have the original Nintendo DS. I think everyone would agree that is a very, very interesting console in and of itself. I think the Nintendo DS Lite was one of the smartest things Nintendo has ever done, and the design language of the DS Lite is really, really good. The original Nintendo DS, I still don't understand what they were doing there. That was just a kind of a console that was all over the place. I guess they had to just get a generation of that console out, so it kind of makes sense, but still, that was a very, very, unique looking console to say the least. With the Nintendo DS Lite, definitely a far better console in almost every single way, which is something I love seeing about this particular console. Now, design-wise, it was a folding device. So I think it was a interesting choice that Nintendo kind of did here. We all kind of know that for the most part, if you're going through and if you're going to buy some sort of device, well, having a folding mechanism could mean that over time it could break or whatever the case is. But it really wasn't that big of a deal for me. I actually kind of liked it, and it was supposed to be kind of that dual screen technology with it having a foldable type of I guess architecture to it, which was very different than what we were getting on some of the competition. If you remember, consoles like the PlayStation P and like all these other ones, those were giving you a little bit of a different, design language for the most part. On those languages, it was more so what you'd expect from a portable console, just kind of it being a rectangular design. This one was completely different. This thing had those dual screens, which was really, really cool. And with the Nintendo DS Lite, this thing looked beautiful. It was a really good looking console, and this once again in and of itself was one of my most favorite things going on for this particular device at that time. So definitely from that perspective alone, it definitely gets a thumbs up for me from the design language. It was sleek, it was slim, and I could look at this thing for hours and hours and hours and not get bored of it. The original DS, a little bit of a different story, but this thing definitely looked very good, and it was one of my most favorite things going on for this particular console at that time. So architecture wise and the design wise, definitely gets a thumbs up. Now, the folding and unfolding could be a little annoying for some people out there. Like if you're having to constantly go through and like unfold this thing and fold this thing, that can be kind of an annoying thing for some people. I will tell you personally, for me, I liked it. I was scared of it sometimes. Like I was afraid this thing was going to break in like two folds or something like that. But after folding it a little bit more, like after like a week, I was already kind of used to it. So it really wasn't even like that big of a deal for me at that time, but still just another interesting thing going on for this particular console. So once again, I will tell you from the outside, everything perfectly fine. Now this console did retail with a lot of different games when it first came out, and it was one of the most, I guess, successful handhelds that Nintendo ever made. The whole entire DS lineup was amazing, and as of March 31st, I'm reading this from Wikipedia obviously, 2014, the DS Lite had shipped 93.86 million units worldwide. That is absolutely crazy. For them to sell those many units in that period of time is crazy, and it's probably sold even more than that, technically speaking. And the amount of games that came out for this console too was just really, really good. I still play a lot of DS games too, but another thing was that the DS Lite was the last Nintendo product in a way to have a dedicated Game Boy Advance slot. So since this particular console, there has never been another Nintendo console for the most part that has had a dedicated Game Boy Advance, game cartridge slot. However, as we all know, a lot of games after this have gotten Game Boy Advance games. So, you could always download them you could have downloaded them from the 3DS eShop, from the Nintendo DSi shop, or DSiWare, and then obviously with the Nintendo Switch now more popular, you have the Game Boy Advance dedicated, Nintendo Online package. So you can always download Nintendo, the Game Boy Advance games there. But that was another really cool thing going on for this particular console. And I would argue that it was probably one of the things that a lot of people will look at with this particular console and probably be a little bit more happier about of picking this one up over the DSi. But I will still tell you, man, the DSi was a really big upgrade coming from the DS Lite as well. But I still look at something like the DS Lite, and I'm very, very happy with the way Nintendo kind of approached this console in every single way. Now, on top of that, with this particular device, you could see that, overall, not only does it look very good, but when you're turning this thing on, it's such a minimalistic type of experience. It's such a minimalistic console, which is pretty insane. When you're getting this type of console, you probably wouldn't expect it to, be this type of minimalistic device, especially from Nintendo. I always feel like they were just, with the, Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance, there were all these lights and different things going on with that particular console and the colors you could choose from. This one, very minimalistic. And that was something that I really appreciated. This was a very good approach from Nintendo at that time, which is something I actually liked a lot, without a doubt. Now, the games available for this console was also just amazing. There were so many games available for this console, kind of like day one, not really, but there was a lot of different games. I mean, the fact that they had the Nintendo DS, the Game Boy Advance slot inside of this one was a really cool thing going on for this particular device as well. So personally for me, the games that I played the most on this particular console, I think was New Super Mario Bros. I played that game a ton. It's probably my most popular game I've ever played. On top of that, I think Nintendogs was another one I tried to get into and I liked, but I just never really continued getting into it, which is kind of funny. On top of that, you had Brain Age, you had the Pokemon games. Never really was too much into Brain Age or Pokemon, but Animal Crossing and Super Mario 64 DS were those two games that I probably played, probably not as much as New Super Mario Bros. To be honest, but I loved Super Mario 64. I played that game all the time. I never even played the original one. I only played the DS one for the most part at that time, and that was amazing. It was super cool to play all those games and trying to find Waluigi in the game too. It was a really cool experience, and looking back, it was definitely by far one of my most favorite experiences going on with this particular console. Now, you were also getting devices or games like Animal Crossing, which I loved a lot. I think Animal Crossing Wild World was amazing, and looking back, it was definitely one of my probably most favorite games going on with this particular device too. I mean, I sunk so many hours into that game, and it was definitely a really cool experience. So I will definitely tell you, looking back, that Nintendo DS Lite, without a doubt, is by far definitely one of my most favorite gaming consoles for sure. It's a beautiful gaming console. It has so much capability and so much quality. And looking forward, I definitely think it's probably a console that if you don't have it, and if you're wanting to play a bunch of DS games, this is a really good way of kind of going through and actually, picking up a console. Now, if you want, I would probably recommend just buying a 3DS if you're actually wanting to just get your hands onto a console and play the games itself. But if you're looking more for a collector's item or anything, then you can always buy the Nintendo DS Lite. It's a very good console, and it's definitely one of my most favorite consoles without a doubt. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, help me so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.